Hi Arman, welcome to Runway Miles with Simran. In our season 1, which we like to call Estimated Time of Arrival, we're interviewing founders of brands we believe have only an estimated amount of time to go before they arrive. And today we're focused with the arrival of Sleepy Owl Coffee. Sleepy Owl Coffee is a story about guys who, from persuading consumers at a Le Marche, now run an office of 200 employees. Sleepy Owl is a story of the coming of age of a friendly neighborhood coffee brand. And more than anything, Sleepy Owl is the story of Ashwajit, Ajay and Arman. Welcome to the show, Arman. Please share your thoughts on being on the show.
Thank you, Simran. Thank you so much. I am very happy to be here and congratulations on getting this up and running. And I'm very excited for the conversation that's going to flow.
Lovely. Alright, so to start off, going back to the very beginning, when you, Ashwajit, Ajay, you all decided to, brew Sleepy Owl pretty much, I'd like to put it that way. What was the reason why it was the three of you that decided to reunite? What kind of strengths do you think everyone brought in? And respectively, what are the roles that you all have at Sleepy Owl?
Okay, perfect. So that question has 4 questions in it. But I'll have to go all the way back, right? So Ajay and Ashwajit went to boarding school together. That's where they met. They became friends. Their beds were beside each other in boarding school. So they met as 10-year-olds, right? So they've known each other for over 20 years now. And Ashwajit and I met in law school in 2010. And Ajay was at that time studying in the US. He was at USC. And Ashwajit and I were at Jindal near Delhi. And I didn't know Ajay and Ajay didn't know me. So we were both Ashwajit's best friends who'd never met, right? And Ashwajit and I in law school decided to venture into entrepreneurship. We started a bunch of startups. We did more than what was asked of us, right? Like the average student would go and become a lawyer, but we tried our hands at a lot of things. And when we graduated, we convinced our parents that law is not the career that we want to pursue. And we were fortunate that our parents were kind enough to let us do different things. So Ashwajit worked at a fashion startup. I was in EdTech in Bombay. And Ajay had completed his education and was working as an investment banker at JP Morgan in New York. Ashwajit called me one day and said, listen, we are young and we have lesser responsibilities than what we would have 5-7 years from now.
Sure.
And both of us were sort of doing more than what we were expected to do at our respective companies, right? So he said, yeah, this is the time for us to do something, right? And I said, we tried our hand at things before while we were in college and they didn't work out. So how confident are you that we'd be able to do it? And he said, we still have to try. And he actually took a one-way ticket to Bombay while I still had my job. He quit his job. And we started spending time together, while I was still working, just trying to figure out what the next big idea is and what is the problem that we want to solve, right? And it was on this journey that, Ashwajit and Ajay were obviously in touch, and Ajay wanted to come back from the US and spend time in India. And he was looking for opportunities here. So Ashwajit and I were very clear that both of us, being law graduates, our skill set and our domain knowledge was limited, and having a third partner who brings something else to the table would be very exciting. And that's when Ajay came on board. And the three of us just, while thinking about ideas, landed on food and beverage as a category that we were all excited about, right? So Ajay, when he was doing investment banking, was doing a lot of consumer practice. Ashwajit and I are big foodies and we love our beverages, alcobev and non-alcobev. And when we were thinking about ideas in food and beverage, we noticed very, very clearly that the three of us had very different coffee drinking habits.
Sure.
We had very different experiences growing up with coffee. Our current habits at that point in time were very different. And when we started going a little deeper into this, we realized that there is a huge opportunity in coffee, given that India is one of the largest exporters of coffee, largest manufacturers or growers of coffee. The world of coffee just drew us in, right? Ashwajit was the only person all through law school and even after who actually brewed coffee in a French press. So, you take coffee beans, you grind them, you brew it. But nobody else, including me, was doing that, right?
Sure.
In fact, to be very frank, I grew up having instant coffee with milk instead of Bonvita, Horlicks and Complan.
Yeah.
So the milk that went into my system went in through cold coffee, right?
Yeah.
Ajay being in investment banking was, for him, coffee was so that he could work 22 hours a day, right? And he was in the US, so he was exposed to a very different world.
Sure.
So the three of us, did preliminary research and realized there's an opportunity here. We took a one-way ticket to Chikmagalur because that's the land of coffee in India, and we just asked questions about everything about coffee. And the interesting thing was that we chanced upon this concept called cold brew coffee, which was absolutely unheard of in India. No one was doing it here, but in the US, in the UK, and Australia, it was something that was sort of picking up steam, right? And we realized that it would be a great opportunity for us to be first movers in this space, and it was immense differentiation from what was happening, right? And there were no consumer brands other than Nescafe and Brew at that point in time that one would be able to recall.
Right.
So we felt this industry needed a bit of a shake-up,
Sure.
and that's what prompted us to get into coffee, and that's how we started CPL.
And likewise, what kind of strengths did you recognize each of you all have,
Correct.
and what kind of roles did you then
Fair
start
enough.
off with, and did you then continue, or did you shuffle these roles?
So, the first couple of months when we were starting out, all of us were doing everything, right? It was a bit of a shit show, to be honest. But I think 3 or 4 months in, we realized that for us to succeed, we need to, have clear roles, well-defined objectives, KRAs, so on and so forth, right? Ajay, since he was an investment banker, he clearly took on the role of business planning, fundraising, investor relations, team building, right? That became his foray. Ashjit was among the three of us. He's the only one who has a very, very solid design sense, right? So when it came to packaging, design, branding, website, anything online, right? He can sit in the computer and get answers to questions, solve problems. So that became his gig, and everything left over was mine. So it's when you start at the age of 24, 25, right, and you're starting a business, there's a lot of learning to be done, right? We don't come with years and years of job experience or domain experience in any specific function, right? Like it's not like Ashjit had worked at an agency and did design. It's not like I ran supply chain for some other big business or startup, right? So we had to pretty much go from scratch.
Yeah.
So I took on production, supply chain, manufacturing, procurement, logistics. All of that became my domain, and then initially. And even now, I'd say all founders always have a sales responsibility, right?
Yeah.
So sales is divided. And at that time, when we were just online on the website, it was just Ashwajit looking at digital marketing and bringing traffic to the website.
Sure.
Ajay and I didn't particularly have sales roles. But as the sales channels expanded, as we moved on to Amazon, modern trade, general trade, alternate channels, quick commerce, as all of this has evolved, we sort of each taken up, a specific, aspect and learned how to do it best, right?
Okay.
So that's how we divide our work with each other, and we're very clear. We don't necessarily overlap. We do strategy together,
Sure.
but each person has their well-defined roles, and that's important. Otherwise, it would be a clusterfuck, for the lack of a better word.
Or like you said, a shit show.
A shit
pretty
show,
much.
yeah. There you go.
That.
Two bad words already.
Right. So when you all started out, your go-to market was to be a specialty coffee brand which did cold brew coffee. You all eventually, forayed into instant coffee. Now you all, do ready to drink.
Absolutely.
And so there's been quite a lot of additional product lines along the way. Can you take us through the
Sure.
reasons for all these additions?
Absolutely. So, like I said, when we started, we discovered that cold brew is a very, very exciting space. And growing up, in the 90s at least, and even early 2000s, cold coffee was a big thing, right? Like, I think Nescafe did a phenomenal job of getting people to drink cold coffee at home. They had the shake tumblers and all of that. Mixing में cold coffee बना के घर में पीना with or without ice cream was a very, I think late 90s, early 2000s sort of thing. And we realized that in India there is an appreciation. It's also a hot country, right? You also have 8 months of summer in most parts of the country, and we just felt that cold brew, with its benefits and with the way the product is, would gel well with consumers in India, right? even though it was unheard of as a category. And I'll take this moment to educate consumers as well that cold brew is a process of brewing coffee in cold water overnight, right? And that results in a product that's less acidic, less bitter, and you actually don't need to add any sugar to a cold brew. It's a less bitter tasting black coffee, right? You can have it hot and cold because cold brew is just a brewing process. So when we read all this and we discovered all this, we said, listen, it doesn't exist. Nobody is doing it, right? Which means there's an opportunity to be a first mover in a category which will grow, right? We are usually, as a consumer market, 7 to 10 years behind most other developed countries in the world. China, US, UK, Australia. Trends sort of get adopted there first, and then gradually we in India sort of adopt them later. That's just how it is. I don't know why it's like that, but it is that way, right? So we said, yeah, aayega, this will become popular. So let's introduce it to the market. And we had no money. We were absolutely bootstrapped at that point. So we had no choice but to pick direct to consumer as a channel to go to, right? So we set up a website. We had one SKU, which was cold brew. What we did differently at that point was a bag-in-box packaging. So a bag-in-box packaging is how wine is packaged in the US or in parts of the world, where you have a box from which you can actually dispense wine. So we adapted that packaging to cold brew in India and set up a website, set up an Instagram. Social media was sort of just picking up, and we managed to attract a lot of consumers because we packaged our product well, right? We presented it well. It looked appetizing, satiating, right? And we did a good job of that. So getting the initial customers, with that onto our website was not as difficult, and we got good feedback from those consumers. We got heavily into digital marketing, events, pop-ups, samplings at offices. We also supplied cold brew to restaurants and cafes. So we took that one product, one SKU, and we spent 2 years sort of bringing the market up to speed, bringing consumers up to speed about the category. The product, though, had two challenges. It had a shelf life challenge because it was a 30-day shelf life product.
Oh.
And the second was that it needed to be refrigerated in transit or refrigerated while it's stored, right? So we realized that the cold chain infrastructure in India for a brand at our scale and the shelf life constraint, especially when you want to go to retail, would exist, right? But we proved that there is a demand for a new age coffee brand, right? We scaled the business, to a 10 to 12 lakh monthly run rate at that point in time, and we managed to raise our first round of investment from a leading consumer fund called DSG, and we went to them with complete clarity that we'd be the right people to sort of take cold brew and enter the ready to drink coffee market. And that was what we pitched as our plan, our goal, right? Was to be an FMCG brand, was to have ready to drink products in modern trade and general trade. We weren't there yet, but with that capital we would do that, right? So we were clear that these products would be a part of our roadmap, right? But when we had to develop these products, we realized that to get a product that is truly differentiated, one without stabilizers, without preservatives, would take time, right? So we launched do-it-yourself cold brew, which is a cold brew pack in which now consumers can sort of brew cold brew themselves. They can add water, leave it overnight and make themselves a cold brew. That allowed us to solve two problems, the shelf life problem as well as the refrigeration problem. And we were then able to ship our products pan-India. So we managed to list on Amazon, Big Basket. Our website would now cater to consumers around the country. And that sort of was the next leg of scale, right? So cold brew in ready to drink cold brew in Delhi NCR, cold brew packs pan-India, and we worked hard on developing the ready to drink range. And within I think 12 months, we managed to crack and became India's first ready to drink cold brew coffee, which was a product that was honestly built for discerning consumers who wanted less milk, less sugar, a stronger coffee. And it's been doing well for the last couple of years. Cut 2022, which is post-COVID, we realized that there is a need for us to get into categories where India is consuming heavily, which was instant coffee. There was no going away from that.
Yeah.
And that's the nature of the beast or the industry that you're in. And we created, one of India's first 100% Arabica instant coffees in the freeze-dried format. And on the ready-to-drink format, we realized while cold brew is for a discerning consumer who wants less milk, less sugar, there is also a consumer in this country that wants nice, creamy, thick, delicious, indulgent cold coffee. Right?
Almost a milkshake which has coffee in it.
Which is most brands,
Yeah.
but we were very clear that we don't want to be a milkshake that has coffee in it. We still want to be a brand that it's milky, but it's not a milkshake. It's still very coffee forward, right? That's like a guardrail that we have, that we don't want to dilute that, right?
Right.
So our product still has to be differentiated from competition on the shelf, and it has to be coffee forward because that's the consumer that we're catering to. And we also launched a product pre-COVID, which was what we call the hot brew bag, which is coffee in a tea bag, which allows you to brew, just add hot water and dip it like a tea bag. So that again is, was a very, very innovative product. When we were coming up with the product, we were like, okay, why hasn't anyone done this? It's actually so intuitive, so simple, right? Like if you can make tea in a tea bag, why not coffee? But no one had done that, so we cracked that product, and that brought us a lot of scale because it was available in Indigo Airlines, AirAsia, Akasa. We managed to crack that. Consumers at home who didn't want to use a French press or an AeroPress or didn't have espresso machines use that product for their daily fix, and we got into the hot coffee space as well.
Yeah.
But you know what? A couple of things that we focused on throughout this journey. One is sourcing great quality Indian coffee, right? So all our coffee is 100% Arabica. It comes from Chikmagalur, right? Our focus has always been on convenience, right? We were very clear that we're a brand that is catering to the millennial Indian consumer who is looking to save time, looking to have products that are easy to use, but does not want to compromise on quality at the same time, right? So yeah, that's been sort of our guiding principles on how we want to think through product, how we want to think through what our brand stands for, and it's been ingrained in us that this is how we're going to continue this journey.
Right. So, and now we have this holistic brand which
which does a lot of things.
Yeah, so many SKUs. Very well. Arman, when we talk of India, we talk of this very unique consumption pattern that Indians have, which sets us apart from so many developed countries. And while you might say there are a lot of brands nowadays, pretty much borrow a product from, which was a success in a developed country and bring it to India, it remains that India has a very unique consumption pattern, like there are foreign concepts such as a waffle or, a pancake, which is actually a breakfast item, but Indians adopt it like dessert, for example.
Correct.
Or coffee, which is, very stimulating. It's supposed to wake you up. People consume coffee at night after dinner like a hangout.
Yeah.
It's very unique. It's bizarre, to some extent. As a coffeepreneur, in your experience, what have been some interesting insights about consumption patterns in India?
Okay. I think a couple of things that we've observed on our journey, right? Like I told you, I think there are two Indias, right? There's India and then there's a Bharat, right? And even within the India, there are, people who are, when an Uber, a Netflix, and Airbnb launches, right? Like you have early adopters, right? So India has that set of early adopters. They're small in number, but it's your, well-traveled sort of folks who are aware of what's going on in the world. Social media has made that possible, right? These folks are looking for the most new, the most exciting, the latest trends in food and beverages, right? And that sort of tapers down, right?
Yeah.
The smallest subset is these people, and then so on and so forth, right? We realize that we don't want to necessarily be a brand that is catering to just one small subset. So have everything for everyone, right? Which is what prompted us to get into instant coffee as well. We said, okay, we have the cold brew and the hot brew, right? We have the ready-to-drink cold brew. Now, these are categories where we are seeing great results in an NCR, in a Bombay, in a Bangalore, right? But the moment you try to scale these products in Coimbatore or in a Punjab or in a Chennai, it may not get that response, right? So it's limited to these geographies, or even to, if you look at the retail market, it will sell in a food hall, in a Nature's Basket. But you cannot take these products to B stores or C stores, right?
Sure.
Or to tier 2 and tier 3 cities necessarily. So we were very clear that we want to make coffee convenient, and there's a certain way people like it. So we would create products for that consumption habit as well, right? Another interesting thing is India doesn't have a to-go coffee culture, right? People don't have coffee on the go. You don't pick up a hot coffee in a cup and walk around with it, right? Even in like corporate parks and stuff, that culture of to-go coffee is not there. It's a very sit-down experience, right? Almost like it's like a meal.
Right.
It's I think we sat at cafes and observed people's orders. People still like a lot of cream, a lot of flavor, right, in their coffee. So that prompted us to say, okay, can we do interesting flavors in our range of products as well, right?
Yeah.
So in our cold brew, in our hot brew, and in our beverage range, we have a hazelnut, a salted caramel, a French vanilla.
Yeah.
So that's got like a fantastic response, right? We didn't start with all this, right? This is like learning from consumers. The other thing is, being a D2C brand, consumers actually tell you a lot more about what they want, what they like, what they don't like, right? And we have access to that consumer base because we sell significantly from our website as well. So you get to really understand people's consumption habits because they talk to you and they share what they like and what they don't, and then you can tune that into your product development.
What do you think you enjoy doing more? Is it making a product that fits into a consumption pattern, or do you enjoy the influencing consumer behavior
Personally, or like as an
or
organization?
as an organization?
Well, then you
And
both.
personally.
Okay, I'll let you both, right? Yeah, as an organization, it is important for us to cater to consumers at scale, right? Like we want the business to grow, we want the brand to grow, right? And for that, you have to take into account all sorts of consumers. One of the very interesting insights that came to us, right, was that consumers at home don't have like one coffee brand that they only consume, right? Consumers are very flirtatious. They want to experiment and try different things in the market. Also different product types, right? In a family of four, right, or let's say in this place where you live with your four roommates, there may be four different consumption habits at play, right? So your kitchen or your pantry inevitably has more than one brand, right, and more than one product type. I'll give you an example. Like I said, I wake up in the morning and I have my coffee in a mocha pot, right, for which I need a ground coffee. Right. Later in the day, I may choose to have coffee in a Sleepy Owl hot brew dip bag, right? Because at office I don't have time to make a mocha pot or a French press. I just want a faster, quicker solution, right?
Sure.
And maybe I'm on the go after that for a meeting and I'm in the mood for a cold coffee and I pick up a ready to drink cold coffee, right? So I'm having three different kinds of products in the same day, and that could also be three different brands for the average consumer, right? We've spoken to consumers who've told us that listen, I only consume Sleepy Owl, but घर पे हाँ वो David of भी पड़ा है, right? मम्मी पीती है, so it's there, right? So that's just how it is. So during our journey, we realized we don't want to limit ourselves to just being a cold brew brand or just doing dip bags, right? Why can't we be in all the categories in which a household consumes, right? And that's what prompted us to be like a full service FMCG coffee brand.
And one that's omnipresent.
And one that's omnipresent. We're also channel agnostic, right?
Right.
Except for our own outlets, we have all sorts of channels that we participate in, right? Whether it's e-com, Q-com, quick commerce, e-commerce, hotels, restaurants, cafes, airlines, offices, modern trade, general trade, right? So, and our website. So we're across the spectrum when it comes to selling our product.
Yeah.
We occasionally tried exporting to Nepal, Bhutan, sort of done that as well. So yeah.
Speaking of channels,
Yes.
and this is something I want to share because I recently went to Ahmedabad where my college was, and I've visited this shop where they sell farsan, which is basically Gujarati snacks,
Okay.
khakra, and those kind of the likes of those kind of things. And it's that shop, and there's like a whole section where they have like a lot of beverages, and I see you're ready to drink over there, and I'm just like, whoa, it was quite a you're from like your own website to a modern bazaar to a shop that sells very regional delicacies. You're everywhere. So big congrats on that. And I think moving on, I want to know about the case of coffee in India, I would say, is very similar to something like the case of like a pizza, for example. Pizza for the longest time was only like available at a Pizza Hut, for example. Coffee for a lot of years growing up was only available at a cafe coffee day, for example.
Absolutely.
People or outlets did not know how to make a pizza. they did not know how to serve a latte or make a frappe, for example.
Correct.
However, over the years, with familiarity of recipe, with experimentation, we've now come to a point where from like a cafe to a roadside street vendor, everyone can make coffee. Everyone can make a pizza, for example. So and we've now come to a point where there's so much experimentation. There's a dalgona coffee, or there's a freak shake which has coffee. Coffee is used in dessert, treats, ice cream, pretty much everywhere, right? Where do you think in all of this experimentation does content marketing fall in, and how important does it become for a brand like you to engage in recipe play and content marketing through your social media?
I think it's extremely important. See, like I said, coffee is flirtatious, and even now when I go to universities or colleges to talk to students, right? And you just have to, I tend to at the end of the talk sort of ask a few questions to the audience just to gauge where the community is at, right? And even now you have one or two people in a hall of 100 who actually still brew a French press at home or an AeroPress and have a black coffee, right? It's still not widely prevalent, right?
Yeah.
So you have to educate consumers on how to use your product and what all they can do with it, right? If a consumer is looking for a dalgona or a freak shake or fun recipes and fun things to do with coffee, social media is a great channel to be able to educate them on the fact that it can be done with our products, right? We use social media as a tool from day one. Reason being that we still don't actually have the budget for an outdoor advertising or a TV or so on and so forth, right? So you have to sort of use channels of marketing that are available to you. We also believed in the fact that the larger consumer brands in the space, the MNCs in the space, aren't doing as much to encourage experimentation and trial and innovation, right? And that's where we come in and say, okay, we're going to make coffee fun. We're going to make it colorful. We're going to make it bright, right? Compared to the regular hues of brown and red that we've seen, for the last 20 years, right? Our thesis is simple. The kids of today, the generation today, doesn't want to consume brands that their parents consume, right? They want to have their own associations. They want to build their own choices, right? So again, through consumer conversations, it's come out that हाँ मम्मी जब लिस्ट बना के देती है तो हमेशा नेस्कैफे लिख के दे देती है, बंदा नेस्कैफे ले आता है, बट मैं चुपचाप स्विगी इंस्टामार्ट से अपने लिए CPR मंगाता हूँ. So it's a clear behavioral shift, right? I think today's 18, 19, 20-year-old is very aware of not just social media but also the way we consume and the way we buy has changed, right? Like I think clearly our parents' generation would go to a store on a Sunday, pick up the ration for the month or the week, right? It's not the case right now, right? We're living in a day and age where 10 minutes and you have your product delivered to you and you have a wide variety of things to choose from. So I think the consumption habits and patterns are absolutely changing,
Right.
and social media and commerce itself has changed, right? So yeah, it's exciting times to live in, and I think there's a massive opportunity for brands in all categories to sort of come and acquire consumers who are looking for fresh takes on things.
And likewise, taking from that, looking at how coffee has so many use cases nowadays, we're also seeing these brand collaborations that are happening, and you guys have collaborated with Jimmy's Cocktails over a mixer,
Yeah.
with greater than over a no sleep gin for that matter, or whether it's a ice cream collaboration with was it Noto,
Yeah.
which I happen to have myself, and there's also been that granola that you did with Whole Truth.
Correct.
Talk to us about how these collaborations are the modern day method to synergy and achieving like a collective growth.
These are products that I would say we wish we could have done independently and scaled, but it's not always possible to do that, right? Because we're in a certain domain, in a certain specific way, running our brand and our focus. So you meet like-minded entrepreneurs who are doing things that excite us as well, right? We're like, okay, wow, Noto, great stuff. I love their products. I consume it. Varun's a friend. Greater than with Anand, he's a friend. We've seen their journey and them grow. And when they called and said, we're trying to do this experiment and, would you like to be a part of it? We said, 100%. So it's a lot about how like-minded entrepreneurs and like-minded brands come together, right? We're speaking to the same consumer. Both brands are innovative in their own way. And when you co-create something that's, actually very, very unique, both brands are aware that it will get, attention from the consumer. It will also provide value to the consumer, right? And it's a win-win for both brands to do this, right? Once we got on this journey, we just it was so much fun, and it brought, eyeballs and brand awareness, recognition, product trials, right? Just the fact that you tried Noto X Sleepy Owl and you did buy it from Noto, you're aware of both brands and the fact that they've done this together, right? So it adds a lot of value. You're absolutely right. It's like modern day, synergies and collaboration in marketing. And both brands equally benefit from this. The consumer benefits from it. So I see no reason why, if done right, it's always good. But it should never be done for the sake of doing it. Then the authenticity doesn't come through, right? I can vouch for the fact that each of these collaborations have had months and months of effort that's gone into developing the product. That's gone into, founders of both brands figuring out how to communicate it right, how to, sell it right. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun to do that.
And have you all felt a tangible, increase in consumer base by tapping into another?
100%. Just the fact that you've brought this up in a conversation today and you've tried some of these things, I think consumers definitely enjoy it, right? We've seen a surge in social media mentions. We've seen consumers going out their way to ask for, a Noto X Sleepy Owl, or, why is the no sleep gin not available in this theka in this city, and we people have really asked for it, and I think that's a good sign.
And I am sure the collaborative process that comes out of it, with your marketing department sitting together,
Absolutely.
with product dev sitting together,
Correct.
how's that been?
It's so much of learning, right? I remember I had to visit Anand's gin facility distillery facility in Goa.
This is greater than.
Anand, sorry. And we spent time understanding how gin is made, right? Understood their business, their brand, what they're doing. We took a lot of iterations and trials to crack the right product. We bonded, we became better friends, right? The product went out to market. We've both seen immense customer love that's come out of it for both brands. So I think that overall exercise, is very, very exciting, right? It's just something you're doing aside of your regular day-to-day as well.
Right.
So yeah, we're always excited to look at some solid collaborations that make sense. They have to really be hand in glove, right?
So you're putting it out there about your openness to
100%.
Collaborate. Interesting. So speaking of and taking it back to the multiple channels that you all are at, which is your D2C own website, modern trade, general trade, whether it's QSR, whether it is your airlines for that matter, you're everywhere. Tell me, in that omni-channel scenario, how do you attribute focus?
That's interesting. Okay, so we have to be where the consumer is. It's very simple, right? As a brand, it's important for you to acquire more and more consumers, right? So, D2C in the last 2 years has taken a bit of a beating, especially post-COVID, where the Apple update with, iOS update that has affected the way consumer data is captured by Facebook and so on and so forth, right? So marketing online has become very expensive. So for us, looking at channels like the airlines or hotels, etc., it's a dual way for us. One, it's business, right? Two is you're able to sample your product and make your product available to a very large consumer base, right? Where people are going and they get to discover the brand. It increases discoverability, it increases awareness, it increases the potential for someone to try it. And once they do, they could buy you again back on a website or Q-commerce or the retail store, right? So we treat a lot of our alternate channel business as a business, to also acquire new consumers, right? And to increase product trials. In food and beverage, there's almost no way to grow the business unless you're getting more and more people to try your product, right? Because it is a very, taste specific or a trial specific thing. So if someone can try it, they are more convinced to go ahead and pay full price for the item at a store, right? And all channels are a focus for us, right? It's not that today I'm saying that okay, I'm only focused on my website and not on another channel. Whatever business comes from, we're happy to take it.
And how do you pick what product is going to, fit best in a minibar at a hotel versus at an airline versus Blinkit?
Trial and error, right?
Yeah.
We've made mistakes. I think every brand at some point has, because when you have multiple categories, right, multiple formats within a category, right, not everything works everywhere, right? So we have seen those challenges, and not everything works in every geography, right? Like I mentioned earlier, right? So let's say today on a Blinkit or an Instamart, our cold brew ready to drink or our hot brew bags, we put them only in certain geographies where we know that there will be good demand for them.
Okay.
We don't necessarily put those everywhere, right? For example, we have our cans here, right? These cans are priced at 125 rupees a can, so they're again available in the top metros, whereas the PET bottle that we have is available across all tier 2s, tier 3s and metros, right? So those are strategic calls that you take, and honestly it's a trial and error process. You have to do it for 3 months, go back, assess, understand, make changes. You also take feedback from your partners who are selling your product, right? So quick commerce channels, e-commerce channels that are selling on your behalf. You engage with them to understand what's doing well and what's not, and that allows you to take these calls, right? Same for a retail store. I think you mentioned there is this store in Ahmedabad where they have regional snacks, and you were surprised to see Sleepy Owl there among other beverages, right?
Yeah.
So we do benchmarking, right? If that store has a Red Bull, if that store has, let's say a tonic water or a ginger ale, right? In the price range of our product, we talk to the retailer, we understand whether he has confidence that this product will not move, right? And on that basis, you get into that store. There's no saying and there's no guarantee. I don't know if that particular store that you're talking about, is my product there, sitting on the shelf, or is it rotating?
Sure.
I don't know yet, right?
Yeah.
But it's important to try. It's important to say, okay, we did it, we waited for 3 months. If it didn't work, it didn't work, right?
Yeah.
But we're not in that store by chance. We're not just there for the sake of it. And I would assume that the gentleman who has, or the lady that has put our product in that store after convincing the retailer has benchmarked what else is in that fridge, right? And who are the kind of consumers coming into that store?
Yeah.
Where is the store located? Is it near a college, like you said it was? So could that be the reason why it's important for us to be in that store, because our TG of law students are going there, and maybe there would be a fit, right? So you have to really, and I call this product channel fit, right? Because each product has to fit into its respective channel, right? So you have to achieve product channel fit for any brand, right? Because not everything will sell everywhere. And that's just something that you have to try and learn. There's no, and there are places that surprise you also.
Right.
You're like, okay, I didn't think that, 125 rupee can would sell at a pan ka dukan, for example.
But it did.
But in a Defcon pan ka dukan, why not? In a Milky Bar pan ka dukan, why not? It does move, right?
Sure.
So it's again like,
experiential,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And speaking of channels generally, we also spoke of quick commerce, very emerging, huge opportunity for so many brands, also for legacy brands. But recently we also saw how, Blinkit was forced to shut so many of its dark stores, following this staff strike that happened. Would you, in this light, agree that, basing your odds or putting all your eggs in one channel can actually leverage you?
100%. We're channel agnostic, right? Whichever channel our consumer is at, we have to be there, right? So we're not putting all our eggs into, let's say, only Q-commerce or anything of that sort, right? We are an omni-channel brand. We're available across channels. I think most brands are, right? Most food and beverage brands would be available across channels. Do I believe that quick commerce is here to stay and it's important? 100%, right? I'm a consumer, I use it every day. I can't guarantee that, this will scale across India and every geography, but even there's trial and error, right? Like they're just exploring Bhopal and Indore, where you're from. They've just opened Bhopal and Indore. It may work, it may not work, but even for them, it's important to try new geographies, new business models, things they do. But yeah, as a consumer, I find immense value in quick commerce. Right? I think most working professionals, I would say nuclear families, or let's say me and my wife, couples who live together, who are working, all day, right? I don't know what I literally don't know what I was doing before quick commerce.
Sure.
Right, I don't recall how I would behave and how I would purchase items and order, because it's life saving, game changing for me, right? At least, and I know it is for everybody else. So I think it's important that this channel exists. I hope it works. I hope it continues to exist, and this is both from a as a consumer and as a business owner, right? Like, it's brought us as a brand immense discoverability among our PG that that shops on these platforms, right? Again, it's going back to my earlier point, early adopters, right? When a Blinkit comes in, first it's the sort of forward thinking, people on their apps and phones, and people who are there, who use it, right? And gradually it trickles down, right? My dad, for example, in Calcutta, he's very clear, right? He had the freshest lemon is the one that I go to the store and pick up. तो मैं नींबू Blinkit पे नहीं खरीदूंगा. It's not as perfect.
Whilst I don't care.
I really don't care. Nimbu's a nimbu, right? Like, I need lemon. I've got my lemon. Like, it does the job for me. It doesn't have to be like
the best.
necessarily the best. Though to me, necessarily कोई problem नहीं था. But his standards of, because he's shopped that way all his life, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it'll take time, right? For something, it's not even 2 years for this. I think over the next couple of years, like, more and more people will adopt it and understand its benefits and so on and so forth, and they're also working on their model and stuff like that. So I think this is just a blip in the larger
picture.
In the larger picture, yeah.
I mean, count me in when you say that you're so dependent on Blinkit. I'm a sellout for, I feel, quick commerce. I don't step out of my house. But there's also that whole larger conversation about the economics of quick commerce, and is it really a viable business model?
It's for them to solve. I'm
Correct.
not here to sort of.
Yeah.
It's not the business I'm running today, right?
But what was the Sleepy Owl office's feeling when what happened?
We lost business for a couple of days in NCR, so we were disappointed, right? As far as it comes to the gig workers especially, and since we're having a larger conversation about this, right? I'm all for and pro the effort that these guys put in, right? So I think as consumers, right, do your little bit that you can to be kind, to be helpful, to give them a glass of water on a hot summer day, to maybe tip them, so on and so forth. They give the tip option, by the way, on the app. Most of these apps now have a tipping option, so use that if you are concerned. I don't think it's fair for me to comment on the internal dynamics of the strike and what Blinkit did. It's not for our place, and this is not the first time that a strike like this has happened. It's happened across Zomato, Swiggy, Blinkit, so on and so forth. Across cities over the years, it's happened many times. I'm pretty sure they will come to a compromise that works for everyone. All said and done, in all fairness, it is job generation as well for a lot of people. There's so many people who wouldn't have the jobs that they do, whether it's people in the stores or so on and so forth. So I think it's something that will solve itself sooner rather than later. And to everyone, it will be fair. It should be fair.
Right.
Things always come around.
Yeah. Speaking of channels, we are seeing like such an increasing amount of coffee consumption in offices, in co-working spaces, and regardless of your preference of coffee, when you're in office and you want your office bhaiya to get you a coffee, he'll get you whatever coffee is there in office. And we're seeing like a chai point perhaps coming up with their own coffee machines where along with that they also send their product for at least the tea variant of the machine. Looking at all of this, do you think Sleepy Owl would be interested in tapping into like a B2B sort of a space?
We've discussed it. See, when you're in business, right, you're as entrepreneurs, you're always evaluating all opportunities and all angles, right? So whether it's opening a cafe, whether it's QSR, whether it's B2B, whether it's machines, everything is being always explored and thought about. Going back to focus, right? Like I said, within our domain of FMCG, all the channels that I mentioned fit in very, very well for our products. We're a product company, right? So our products fit into all of those channels. What you're referring to now are very different businesses altogether, right? So it's under this brand, but it's a different business. It's something we'll have to, evaluate deeper, larger, have that conversation, because to do that well and to do it at scale, it may be a distraction at a point in time, and it requires its own set of resources, right? and that's something that I think there's a right place, right time for it. Not right now. That's where we're at right now. Yeah.
Right.
We're just waiting it out.
Fair, very well. Speaking of how you guys are, very alive to opportunities and at the same time, I'm sure to threats in the industry, challenges in the industry. Take us through what would you say is a big challenge or are the big challenges in the beverage category overall?
Okay. So there'll be two aspects to this. One is from a couple of years ago and even now is consumer education around cold brew and around coffee, right? It's taken a lot of effort and for us to sort of, and not just us, for the industry to educate consumers around like cold brew or brewing methods or brewing processes or coffee itself, right? I think early 2000s there wasn't as much awareness about coffee, right? That is picking up. You have a Starbucks and Tim Hortons coming into India in 2012, 2013. You have homegrown brands that have cafes and so on and so forth. You have online brands that are now educating consumers. So we were very early on this journey, and I think one of the biggest challenges for all of us is to continue to educate consumers on coffee, right? And bring more and more people into the fold. I think it's a very large pie. And I think there's a lot of space for everyone to coexist and sort of get more and more consumers into consuming coffee in the first place, right? Because in India, coffee to tea consumption is completely whacked out. Like tea is consumed much more than coffee, and that's changing, right? And for the better for all of us. Right? So that's one. Beverage in general, I think one of the challenges is that I'm not competing with cold coffee brands, right? I'm competing for thirst, essentially, right? So someone's thirsty and they want to drink something, right? Because there's only so much that people drink in a day, right? And I think you have water, you have, all your carbonated beverages run by the likes of Pepsi and Coke, and then Pepsi and Coke have their set of, beverage ranges that they do, right? So today, like when you look at the general trade store or a modern trade store, you have a Coke ka fridge or a Pepsi ka fridge, right? And it's brands like us that are saying that hum convincing the retailer ki inke fridge mein hame dal do, right? Which the retailer also says, I have only Coke products, this is Coke fridge, unka sales wala aayega to, so the infrastructure for beverage in India needs to pick up, right? There need to be more fridges, there need to be things, retailers need to invest, so on and so forth. Because today your modern bazaars, Food Hall and Limache with those massive fridges, a handful. They're a handful, right? I'm talking about general trade will gradually come up. There will be more changes in the retail environment for beverage to thrive, right?
Sure.
Second piece is that unfortunately beverage does not, ready to consume beverage does not necessarily sell very well online. It is an offline play. Right? Of course, Q-commerce, so on and so forth is great for beverage, right? Because it comes to you in 10 minutes. But beverage otherwise is not a D2C or an Amazon product, right? And that's just a big challenge because for a digital brand, you wish you could sell, and it's not that it doesn't sell, it sells, but it's like, you'll have to buy 24 cans, right? Or you'll have to buy, for any other brand, you'll have to buy 12 ginger ales, or for a tonic water, you'll have to buy 12 tonic waters, right? So selling beverage online, okay, and it's liquid, it's heavy, shipping cost is very high to ship this around the country, right? So those are inherent challenges with selling beverage online. You're transporting water weight effectively, right? Across the country if you sell it from your website.
Right.
And truth be told, no one wants to pay for shipping. Consumers don't want to pay for shipping, and that's absolutely fair. I understand that that's how it is, right? And that's the way the industry is sort of attuned, right? So brands have to bear that shipping cost, right? And it doesn't work out. Unit economics don't work out, right? So you're left with the retail sales channel, which is it has its own set of challenges, and so that's sort of the challenges with building a beverage brand in India. It's not easy.
Very interesting, Arman, that you said that you're competing with a lot of these other beverage brands, not just coffee brands, because essentially you're addressing thirst.
Correct.
Right. Would you, in that light, agree that all these new age beverage brands that are coming up, whether it's a coffee-based beverage, whether it's a sports-based drink, whether it's a kombucha, something your wife does very well, would you say that, a couple of years down the line, do you see the shelves of legacy brands like the likes of fruity or maza or these mango-based drinks
Mhm.
completely being replaced by new age.
No,
No.
no, not in the next decade at least. I think again, there's a place for everything,
Hmm.
right? Okay, India is not just we're urban India, right?
Yeah.
And then there's a rural India, right? And you have products starting all the way at 10 rupees, all the way to let's say 250 rupees for a beverage, right?
Hmm.
The whole spectrum is there.
Yeah.
So I do feel like next time you take a train from anywhere to anywhere, you go to a stall in a railway station, you'll have a 10 rupee fruity there, it'll never get replaced. Why will it get replaced? And they have the scale to be able to sell a 10 rupee beverage, which a new age brand may not necessarily have. Right?
And are deeply penetrating.
And are deeply penetrated, and it takes time to do that. So yeah, it will always exist. I mean, Parley has an Appy Fizz, right?
Yeah.
Which is it's gotten smaller and smaller and smaller, and now it's a 10 rupee Appy Fizz for 125 ml, right? Because that's what the consumer in a certain store or a certain place is willing to pay.
Mm.
That's all they need to quench their thirst, right?
Yeah.
They're okay with that is their disposable income, right? So it's happening, right?
Mm.
We've also experimented with a 125 rupee, premium can to a change in packaging format because that product is at 70 rupees, right? So that
But what
you
about
can-
the shelf life then of?
it's just the can is 8 months, the PET bottle is 6 months, right?
So how does your inventory management, let's say,
It's,
differ?
it's complicated, and again, it's about store selection. It's about putting the right product in the right place. It's for different consumers, right? Think about again, just to put it in perspective for beverage order. Think about Coke and Pepsi, right? Like you have a 2 liter, you have a 750 ml, you have a 300 ml, then you have the cans. The cans have different mls. Then you have glass bottles, by the way, in a lot of parts of the country. If you remember, that kids used to have Coke or Pepsi in a glass bottle, right?
Yeah.
It still exists
Yeah.
in markets, but today maybe you don't shop, in that same place. So different volumes, different price points. That is just the nature of the beverage market, right? So that you can cater to different segments.
Hmm.
Not everyone has the same purchasing power. Not every city, every retailer has the same sort of ability to stock, all kinds of products, right?
Right.
So yeah, and then consumers also, right? Like for me, I always prefer buying a can of Thumbs Up over a PET bottle.
Right.
Just it's one of those things that it just feels more premium, right? And
That's true.
that 10 rupees or that 5 rupees for me today is not my decision making factor,
Hmm.
right? I just find like a can better. So
I find the can better.
yeah, and that's that's absolutely that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So, but as businesses, you have to understand like your consumer base, right?
Serve all of them in
and
some
serve
way.
all of them in some way or form. Right?
Which is especially your idea at CBL
Correct. Yes,
also.
it is.
Talking about your merchandise section on the website or the coffee gift sets that you all have been doing, I think it was Ashwajit who went on record once earlier saying how merchandise ensures that your consumers are not just consumers, they're fans of your brand really. How has that unfolded?
Back in 2018, so that's about 5 years ago, while researching, Ashwajit came across an enamel mug, right? It's a stainless steel army mug that is not easily available anywhere, right? So he decided that coffee is consumed in a mug, so Sleepy Owl can launch a branded enamel mug. And the enamel mug is a very unique product because at that time didn't find it easily anywhere, right? So we put that together, and it was a resounding success because we sold thousands of units of that product, and we surprised ourselves. We were like, okay, this is, we didn't expect this, right? And it goes back to, as brands, you have to do a lot of trial and error, and sort of keep looking at things, right? So when that happened, we said, okay, let's go deeper, right? We all got some travel mugs, tumblers, frothers, sort of coffee accessories and things that consumers would like to have along with their products. And we have over 8,000 consumers who bought merchandise from our website who never bought our coffee.
Right.
So we were like, okay, like that's a crazy statistic because why aren't you having our coffee? That's what we want you to have. But I guess for those folks and at least the consumer conversations that I did with them, they were like, we just like the merchandise. We also used those merchandise then along with our coffee to create combos and gift boxes and At least on your website, it's critical to work on high average order values, right? So you are giving the consumer value, but your average order value on your website goes up when you club multiple items together,
True.
right?
And how does that help? If you could just take us through.
So you spend money to acquire a consumer when you run Google ads, Facebook ads, YouTube ads, etc., any digital marketing. And if you were to break down your shipping cost and your acquisition cost and all of that, a low AOV item usually results in not making money on the first order.
And bad economics generally.
On the first order, right? And then the hope is that the consumer comes back to you over and over and over again, and then you make money off that initial acquisition that you spend. But when you have a high average order value, you could make money on the first order itself, right? And like I said, free shipping is what consumers want. So you also have to take into account the inbuilt shipping cost of your product, right? So having a high average order value allows for you to have that room for the shipping cost as well.
I see.
You also need to take returns into account, you need to take COD charges into account, most of which again consumers have been spoiled, right? By the e-commerce universe, right? And hence that's why it's important. For us, it served a dual purpose, having merchandise, because even if someone is, let's say, not drinking our coffee at home, a Sleepy Owl mug is a constant reminder that that's the brand that they should be consuming. It becomes a part of your house, your home. I've got feedback from people saying that we've seen people using your mugs in Manali, or people have traveled with your travel mug around the country, so on and so forth, and it creates a lot of brand recall for the consumer himself, but also for those around the consumer who are looking at them using our merchandise and gadgets and stuff like that. So yeah, it's something that we tried, that worked, and that we doubled down on.
Similarly, I'm sure there's consumers who don't consume your coffee but want to gift it to somebody.
Absolutely, so in the channels of sales, as I said, corporate gifting is a sizable channel as well.
Okay.
Employee joining kits is a decent channel as well, where employers want to give a joining gift to their employees, and our coffee or our merchandise is a part of that goodie bag or basket. Come Diwali season, coffee and coffee kits and hampers are a great gifting option. So that's sort of where it comes in handy. And of course, I think for regular gifting, right? Like, you may not be a consumer of our brand or of coffee in general, but someone who loves coffee, and you could gift that to them, and that's a very important use case for our product as well. Coffee, and something that we realized very early on is that unlike maybe a toothpaste or a soap, like, coffee is one of those things that you would tell your 5 close friends that, this is what I've discovered, this is what I'm drinking. It's a great conversation starter. It's a great conversation to have, to share, to exchange notes, depending on how enthusiastic you are. So we always knew that this category lends itself to consumers talking to each other, or friend circles having a conversation about it. So branding yourself well, offering good customer service, good product, will always lead to good word of mouth. Right? That's one. Second is, it's addictive. So at least keeping the flirtatiousness aside, right? If someone loves your brand and your product, they would repeat over and over again.
Right.
So we've had consumers who've been with us for 7 years, 6 years, 5 years. In fact, we've had consumers who, let's say, joined our journey 3 months ago and ordered regularly, and sometimes they write to us saying, just discovered your brand and fantastic product. And I always let them know that, listen, I feel bad for you because you're late to the party. We've been around long enough, and you're late to the party. And it's always a funny way of breaking the ice with a consumer who has recently fallen in love with your brand.
Correct. And like you said, I think gifting is like a whole industry.
Absolutely.
I think in itself, and people are always looking for like newer options to gift, and I think you guys come in handy, and that's wonderful. Okay, moving on. Is this like a deliberate strategy of yours at Sleepy Owl to shy away from a lot of influencer marketing?
Interesting. So we, again, like everything else, we've tried, we've experimented with it. We've found some success in it at some points in time. But our thesis currently is that in food and beverage, influencer marketing doesn't work as well as it would work in personal care, skincare, and other categories. Reason being that I think consumers don't necessarily don't necessarily say, okay, because this influencer is consuming sleepy oil, I also want to consume sleepy oil. It's a very taste and preference thing.
Sure.
It's a very habit, right? Like, I don't think I would base my food and beverage choices necessarily on because a certain celebrity or a certain influencer is consuming it or is promoting it, right? I mean, we've had, Thumbs Up promoted by Shah Rukh, Salman, Akshay, all in the last 10 years, right? So, I mean, personally to us, as founders, and our learnings and understanding is that, this category does not necessarily require, influence in the conventional sense of how influencer marketing works, right? We have found success when we've gone deeper with certain creators and certain folks who we align with, our brand resonates with, and whose fans are truly loyal to them. I'll take an example here. We have Ronnie and Bati, who are travel influencers, who have a very, very highly engaged audience, who really value their opinion, who really value their content. And when we did partner with them, it was an immensely successful influencer collaboration, right? But you can't spray and pray with this. Not everybody who has followers is an influencer, first and foremost, right?
Very well put.
Influencers are people who can genuinely influence your decision making, right? I genuinely feel that in a skincare or personal care, when you're actually applying a product and you're showing it, it really could influence people to want to use it. Not necessarily for our category. So that's our approach to it. Maybe we'll try again.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see a different angle of looking at it. But we've toned it down a little bit.
And tell us about the recent campaign where you guys, used a doppelganger of Salman.
And Shah Rukh.
And
Amitabh. Yeah.
And let's just take us through how that was.
Yeah, this is the first podcast since that campaign. So this was a couple of months ago, about maybe 9 months ago, when we discovered an Instagram profile of a doppelganger of one of the celebrities. And it was then when we first had the idea that we should do something with this. And we weren't really sure on what it was. We didn't go deep into it then. And then there was this brand in the UK called Surreal, which did a very interesting campaign where they had digital hoardings saying that Serena Williams loves our coffee, Cristiano Ronaldo loves our coffee, and they had an asterisk and it said, not the Serena or not the Cristiano you're thinking of, And basically they had real people who are also named Cristiano Ronaldo and Serena Williams, who they got consent from to endorse the product.
Right.
And they blew it up on hoardings, right? So we said, wow, this is really cool. Let's reactivate our doppelganger idea, right? So we took inspiration from another brand, and they've been duly credited in all the communication that we've done around this, right? We've got a lot of flack for, let's say copying Surreal, but we have acknowledged Surreal in all of our communication. And the true story, which is coming out for the first time, is that we were on this idea over like 9 or 10 months ago. It's just that we didn't execute it, and when they did it, we were inspired by what they'd done. Yeah. We said, okay, let's do something on these lines. So we actually reached out to the doppelgangers. We signed agreements with them. We sent them our products. We got the photos, and we had our own creative copy and angle and sort of.
And bespoke to India.
Yeah, absolutely. Pathan loves your coffee. Very relevant to recent. Bhai loves loves Sleepy Owl. Amit Ji loves Sleepy Owl. Any Amit Ji. And we sort of played it out our own way. And again, very divided opinion on the internet, but a lot of people really, really loved it, and a lot of people didn't appreciate it, and that's fine, right? I think we're of the mindset that it got traction. People were talking about it, and I believe in advertising. People are there are ads coming out every day. There is brands putting out their messaging every day. A lot of it just doesn't get the attention that the brand wants, right? And I think the worst thing that can happen for an advertisement is to be ignored, right? Hate is fine, love is fine. To be ignored is a waste of a brand's effort into making an advertisement. So we've accepted that we want to be bold and courageous with our marketing choices, and it comes with a certain element of I guess you have the word for it would be the keyboard warriors will keyboard warrior, and that's okay. Like we understand that, but we're proud. We're happy. I think it's something we're proud of. Yeah.
Very, very clever also at that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. Arman, so coffee, as we know it, is not just a consumable, right? It's a hangout. People go for a party, people go for dinner, people go for coffee. There's a large section of people which will still continue to prefer grabbing a coffee at a place instead of the to-go or the ready-to-drink kind of a coffee. In all of this, where are there any outlet plans?
Okay, again, going back to something that we discussed earlier, right? I think it comes to focus, right? And as a brand, we're trying to build an in-home coffee brand. We're catering to in-home consumption, which we see growing, and we're playing in the FMCG space. But never say never to cafes or to any other concept around this. It's I think as the brand grows and evolves, there will be a right time and the right place for newer business models. And I think back in 2017 we tried the shop in shop model. Where we set up shops in Le Marche and Modern Bazaar, etc. And at that time we weren't able to sort of get an ROI on it, and our focus went in multiple directions.
Yeah.
So we scaled that back immediately, right? And we decided that we will experiment with things that take our time and attention. And you have to understand, different business models require different infrastructure for us, different sort of people you have in your team. So all of that changes, right? And then, of course, capital, right? Resources is a very important aspect. Our understanding is that the cafe business is, yes, coffee, but also heavily dependent on service, on food, on experience, on location. Right?
Has intricacies of its own.
And has a lot of other intricacies that, we'd like to shelve and, come back to at another time.
Lovely. Awesome. We'll look forward to it whenever that happens. Alright, Arman, we'll now move on to a segment in our show which we like to call the dog fight, which is the aviation term for an aerial battle between two fighter crafts carried out at a close range. So here I'll be attacking you with some questions and let's see how you tackle these.
Awesome.
Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
What would you say is the reason Sleepy Owl has retained its position in a highly competitive industry?
Customer service.
What do you think you prioritize more at Sleepy Owl, growth or profitability?
Both.
Right. Interesting. A new age coffee brand besides Sleepy Owl you approve of?
All.
What if I were to ask you one?
Tough. I don't consume any other. Subco.
Alright. I haven't come across. Okay. You've gone on record to say that with increasing competition, the pie will only become bigger with more competition. How do you become this secure as an entrepreneur?
I think our customers love us and they appreciate what we're doing. And I think we know that we're putting our best foot forward. So as long as we're doing that, I think shouldn't be no problem.
The most important skill you learned at law school that continues to guide you?
Okay, research. Yeah,
I have to agree.
Because I think building Sleepy Owl from day zero to today has just been lots and lots and lots of research, which means consuming lots and lots of information and sort of, distilling it down to what's important, and that's essentially what a lawyer does.
And lawyers would best, I believe.
Yeah, so I've been trained to do that.
What has been the most important learning so far in your entrepreneurial journey?
Have a good balance in building for yourself and building for your consumer.
What kind of new launches should we expect from Sleepy Owl?
So our NPD pipeline has a lot of very interesting products, but I think the one that we're looking to explore immediately is dairy alternative cold coffees.
What makes you go through rough times accordingly?
I have pets at home, right? So I have a bunch of cats and a bunch of dogs.
That's the cutest.
And honestly, when you start your day with them and you go back to them, I'm not even going to include my wife, I'm including my pets. Because it's like an absolute, they just love you so unconditionally. It's unbelievable.
Lovely. Awesome. Love that answer, by the way. What is the penalty at Sleepy Owl HQ for ordering a coffee that's not Sleepy Owl?
None, no penalty, but I haven't seen anyone try that.
Really?
Yeah.
What has been your favorite collaboration so far? Why?
No Sleep with Greater Than. I think it was truly revolutionary. Like, it was a fantastic product that, got a lot of love and a lot of people enjoyed.
What has been your favorite brand in India? Why?
My favorite brand in India.
Apart from Rouge.
Yeah, okay, favorite is wrong, but again, I have these friends who run this brand called Got Tea. It's a bubble tea brand.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of what they're doing.
Mm.
And I really enjoy their products.
Mm.
And I think my favorite is a big one, but that's one that I keep going back to over and over again.
Awesome.
So I like their stuff and I like what they're doing.
Right. Besides F&B, one category that excites you in the current landscape?
I think fashion's always exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think there's always it's ever changing, right? So there's no okay, this is,
Atmosphere, kombucha or Sleepy Owl coffee or go-to drink to serve to guests that frequent your house?
Atmosphere kombucha.
That brings us to the end of the dog fight. I think
It was a dog fight. Usually it isn't, but today it was.
It was. Right. Please share your thoughts on having completed this chat.
I think it was a lot of fun. I had a great time, and I'm really excited to see this go through. I think everyone here who's made this happen has been a lot of fun to work with, and I'm excited to see the final edit.
Lovely. Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Simran.
Thanks, Arman.